What's going on? It's Friday night and it is going all right. I'm going to go ahead and hit a really quick intro and give us a little bit of time to rev up, probably 30 seconds or so. Be right back. What's going on, everyone? Thank you so much for tuning in on a Friday night. Every Friday night, I come in here and I just do a live stream that's streamed on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. And if you are on any of these platforms, just hit the link above and just understand that if I am using a third-party platform, so if you comment on the videos or any of wherever this is streamed to, please hit that link so I can see your comment in the dashboard. But really quick, thank you so much again for tuning in. My name is Jeremy, and I do this every Friday night at 6:30 Central. I'm a little bit late today. We were supposed to have a special guest on here, but things didn't work out. It's all good. He's going to come back on another time. But wanted to talk tonight about what made me want to forgive my dad. And for those of you who wondering what in the world and why in the world am I even talking about this, I'll give you a little brief overview of my story. My dad was actually murdered when I was 18 years old. I was just turned 30 this past weekend, actually. And ironically enough, there's a lot of stuff that has happened over the past 10 years, over 10 years. But when I was 18, we officially got the phone call that my dad had been murdered in cold blood. And our family vacation turned into a family funeral. And there was a lot, to say the least, that went into overcoming and unpacking the grief. I had a bad case of the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. Because I contemplated suicide when I was 16, but my parents divorced when I was 10, and I'm the oldest of three siblings. And there's a lot that happened. And when it comes down to, my dad abused me behind the scenes, didn't tell my mom about it because I was fascinated and just enthralled by the lifestyle that he lived. And every form of abuse except sexual abuse. And that's where, my self-esteem was 2 inches tall when I contemplated suicide at 16 because of shame. And I just didn't want to be a burden. And what happened after I contemplated suicide was that I started to understand about forgiveness for myself. And this is going to get to the topic of tonight. And there's a lot of things that I had to unlearn and rework and reframe that were just absolute scars. And I remember a lot of the different times that when I thought about even just forgiving my dad. I kid you not. When my dad did not deserve it in my eyes. I had no understanding of what forgiveness would even do for myself because my number one mission in life, when I turned my life around, I'll just be straight up, was not to become my dad. That's every young man's dream who wants to break a generational curse. And if you can relate, say amen. And in the comments, let me know. But I'm kidding you not. When it comes down to a lot of the aspirations of, of course, when I was growing up, I wanted to be like my dad. I was as a young boy, and I wanted to emulate my dad. And at that time when I was like 12 to 16, I was even though I hated my dad, I wanted to. I had the most respect for him in certain degrees, but there's a lot of stuff that I learned what not to do and what also to do. So eat the meat, spit the fat. But there's a lot of crossover. There's a lot of stuff that in business side of things that I learned that what not to do, and also to make sure that when it comes to just myself and how to conduct myself when it comes to working with employees, when it comes to working with just when it comes to working with anyone in general. And I remember how abrasive my dad was, and I was scared. I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, man, how in the world am I going to talk to a man who doesn't even let a judge talk to him? Like, I'm literally just 16, like skinny as a rail. At that time, I looked like I was a log with a bump on it because I had a little bit of a little bit less of a dad bod than I do now. And funny, my wife, I don't even have kids yet, and I have a dad bod. Hey, God's preparing me ahead of time, right? But I went through this so many different so many questions and thoughts that went through my head. and what held me back from wanting to forgive my dad, because at the same time, I just wanted nothing to do with him. I didn't want to go back into the belly of the beast, so to speak, and get hurt again, go back into the middle of a storm, and I didn't want to put myself in harm's way again. I didn't want to do any of that. And ironically enough, what happened is I began to learn that, and actually, I'm going to ask you this question: where, like, according to science, where is the calmest place in a tornado? And I want to ask that. And those of you who are watching, drop it in the comments. If you're on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, wherever, drop it in the comments. Make sure you hit the link above with the video so I can see your comments. But let me know in the comments down below, where, according to science, where is the calmest part of a tornado? And darn well it's not on the outside of it. That's where you run. But let me know in the comments and where, according to science, is the calmest part of a tornado. And what you'll, for those who are catching the replay, what you're going to find out is it's in the center, the eye of the storm. What's crazy is I definitely wasn't going to deal with the storm on the outside of it, where all the stuff is being thrown around. And my dad, technically, when my dad was mad, he was like the Tasmanian devil. He just tore through things and asked questions later. And that's what I was dealing with. It's like that personality type is always prickly, on the defense, for whatever reason. Excuse me for burping the microphone. But like, how do you navigate with someone like that? How in the world can you even how can you even reason with someone? How can I even talk to them? How can I approach them and let them know that this is something that's very near and dear and important to me? How do I get them to care? Like, how do I get somebody who has hurt me in the past to care, right? Like, that was like my prerequisite. I'm like, man, if he doesn't care, then I definitely don't want to open up and tell him how he hurt me, because then he's just gonna laugh at me, brush it off, and all that jazz, right? And I don't know if I'm the only one that's dealt with that type of personality in my life. I'm gonna jump on that grenade, I guess. But when it comes down to, and I know I'm not alone. So that way, when it comes to anybody who hears this, like some folks who drop a comment, like, you're not alone. I know I'm not. It's okay. But those who catch this on the replay, I want you to ask yourself, when it comes to holding on to that one thing, when it comes to that shred of dignity that you are telling yourself that you're going to keep, when you're not going to forgive that person, because here's the thing: what you're really saying is that I'm not going to forget. Right? I can't forget, which obviously that's impossible. You can't forget something that's happened in history unless time kicks in and you forgot 100 years ago, whatever the case is. I don't remember what I ate for breakfast 4 days ago, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure it was my standard breakfast, or I forgot to eat breakfast. So, but at the same time, forgiveness does not mean to forget. Okay, that's base number one. Base number two is that regardless of what they do, I'm not going to allow that person's actions in the past impact my emotions right now. Yeah, that was screwed up what they did, but I'm also too not going to allow myself to put myself back in that situation. That's base number three, because we can work backwards and outline exactly what happened. That is not to forget what happened. It's to protect your heart first. You protecting your heart is number one. So I had to actually ask myself, I'm like, how in the world can I not put myself in that situation again to allow him to hurt me? And that was where okay, cool. I can still love somebody, but not excuse or allow or enable what they did, right? And that was where when I went down that path, I really started to understand that, man, I don't want this weight on my shoulders, right? The weight's not from what they did. The weight is from what you hold in your heart. A lot of times where, and there of course is trauma that comes along with certain things that people do, and you have to work through that and be able to do that. But the first step is forgiving and letting go. Forgiving and letting go is not to excuse what happened. It's not to let them do it again. Not a bit. That's why protecting your heart and putting in your boundaries according to your standards. Because at the same time, what I realized was going on is that, I didn't want these certain things to happen to me again. I had more respect for myself, right? At this point in time compared to, a year beforehand. I kid you not. And I remember reading The Purpose Driven Life. If you haven't gone and read it, I definitely recommend it. But when it comes down to, sorry, I feel like I need WD 40 for my joints now. And if this is what it feels like when you turn 30, y'all just let me know in the comments, pretty please, because I promise you, if you got WD 40 for your joints, I need it bad. But no, jokes aside, though, with when it comes down to actually understanding that I needed to protect myself, but I didn't need to let it go unsettled. And I kid you not, man, there were so many times where my dad would, oh Lord have mercy, I was like, there were those days where I'm like, I remember cussing him out. And I mean, I'm a Christian, man. Like at that point in time, I was like, yeah, Jesus is great. But then also, too, I'm one hand, I'm cussing my dad on the other. I'm like, dude, I'm human. Like, I am not perfect, man. I promise you, man. I was doing my level best. And what happened was is that the potential that I saw in myself and the respect that I had for myself, I started to treat that and give it to my dad in the form of me wanting better for him. And it wasn't sorry, and this is also two nose hairs. I got my wife is telling me I need to get nose hair trimmer too, TMI. But, but I kid you not, there were times where I realized that I didn't allow certain things to happen between me and my dad out of self-respect and dignity. I wasn't going to allow him to just steamroll me anymore. Because at one point in my life, I was just a yes man. I was like, yes, dad, I promise I'll do this, etc. And then even when I did it to the iota, I mean, the literal speck of dust to the perfection of what he asked for, still wasn't happy. And misery loves company. Okay. You know, when it comes down to us not being happy within ourselves, a lot of times that's all we tend to see because when you put on sunglasses, what happens is your view is tainted and you can't see everything accordingly. Like right now, you can probably see my eyeballs. You can probably see the silhouette of them, but at the end of the day, you really can't see my eye color. But when I take them off, then what happens is I'm like, holy cow, it's brighter. That's awesome. And so what happens is when you forgive and let go, what they did to you, and anything and anyone that reminds you of them will not control your day. If you don't forgive and let go, what's going to happen is other people will be able to control your life, and not even on purpose. And that's entirely on you. And what I had to realize was when it came down to, gosh, I mean, there's been so many instances where, where when it comes down to letting that go, I am on one hand, I wanted to let go and breathe easier, right? I didn't want to be haunted by those thoughts. I didn't want to replay those different things in my mind. I didn't want to have resentment. I didn't want to have these different, I just didn't want to have skits of what happened, replaying in my brain every single day and just, playing out different scenarios if something happened or whatever. Yeah, it was exhausting. It's mentally exhausting. And what happens is when you don't feed that animal, there's an old saying that when there's two dogs in a fight, which one wins? It's the one you feed the most, right? And it was interesting that um, when it comes down to, when it comes down to just letting go, it's not about saying what they did was okay. A lot of times, what people will try to do is rile you up because they love drama. Okay, again, misery loves company. Sorry, I don't mean to yell in your ear on this, but it's something I am beyond passionate about because a lot of times people don't forgive because of this very thing. People don't forgive because if they feel like if they forgive, they're going to give that person the W. They're going to give them the win. Come on. At the end of the day, the only ones getting punched in the face is you, and you're doing it to yourself. And that, trust me, this comes with customers, clients. Lord have mercy, my blessed Lord have Lanta. I kid you not, when it comes to being a business owner, like just drop a comment and let me know how many times you've been used as a punching bag by your customers and your clients. Let's be real. Like, forget about the filter, forget about any of that. My dad had a tree company for almost 20 years. I was pretty much the project manager and the HR guy because my dad would piss off so many people, customers and employees alike. I had to be a buffer. No shocker there, right? But like, how many times have you been the punching bag for customers and clients? Seriously. take out the stress on you. And a lot of times they come back and say, I'm sorry. But there's still that residue. And there's also there's a boundary that you got to put in place, right? And I mean, dude, there's been so, I mean, personally, I mean, I've had so many clients where, I'd, build them a website or whatever, and then they don't reply for 6 months and then act like they're barking orders. It's like, hey, great to reconnect. Like, what are you talking about? But it's interesting because at the same token, there's a lot of employees that can also too do things unknowingly or intentionally and betray you. And that is something that you have to make sure that you put in perspective, that when it comes down to making sure that A, you don't allow it again, B, that this is a business, this isn't a charity, this isn't a mentorship, right? So there's a different allowance of grace for certain things. And that's one of the biggest things, that you definitely, when it comes to forgiveness, you are not supposed to be a yes man. That is extremely important. Or yes woman. You're just a yes person. It doesn't matter. You don't want to go along with everything just in fear of losing someone. Because at the end of the day, go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. I kid you not, man. When I was rebuilding the relationship with my dad, what made me want to forgive him was me forgiving myself first. The old saying that, man, I am so glad you're not hard on me as you are hard on yourself, because people are 10 times harder on themselves compared to how hard they are on other people. Just think about that a lot next time you're in traffic, right? Well, next time you're when someone does something absolutely just stupid, I mean, just dumb, like you're wondering, are they okay? Right? And you're wondering, like, okay, that wasn't because of me, right? Read between the lines. A lot of times people don't do things because of you. They do it because you're the closest person to them and you're the closest punching bag or outlet to them. And, right place, or, wrong place, right time. And I remember the more that I had self-respect for myself, excuse me, I drank like half a bang drink earlier. Now the gas is starting to come up. But I want to ask you, like, when it comes to forgiving someone, what were you taught when you were growing up? Were you taught, like, or even to just, what have you heard? Like, when you forgive someone, have you been did you learn that you had to forget it? Right? Have you been told that you had to excuse it, or that forgiving someone was enabling them or saying that it was okay? Like, let me know in the comments, because I'm really, really curious, because a lot of people are told so many different things growing up when it comes down to forgiveness and just letting go, that a lot of times there's a lot of misunderstandings. And when it came to like me wanting to forgive, me really desiring to actually let that go, oh man, it definitely wasn't for my dad's sake. I wanted to stop being haunted by those thoughts. I wanted to stop. I wanted to stop. I wanted to stop being chained down by that heaviness. Because at the end of the day, when it came down to me needing to let that go, there was so much that I had to untangle emotionally, mentally, and because there were certain things that would come to mind when certain stuff would happen. These are called mindsets. These are things that we think from that we don't recognize. Mindsets are like the house, and then thoughts are like the pillars in the home. And so you've got things that are ingrained in you for so long, that until awareness and attention is brought to them in the form of correction, because the proverb says, he who hates correction is stupid. Literally says that. So go look it up if you don't believe me. But literally, when it says it in this tone, but like when it was written, it said that he who hates correction is stupid. Like, really, truly, like, it was like, if you hate correction, you must not like life. Because I, personally speaking, I don't know about you, but when it comes down to those who are for me, I want to make sure that I'll say this, is that, and I totally lost my train of thought too, but when it comes to forgiving, for me, I didn't want to feel like a wet blanket was on me all the time. I didn't want to feel like I had to second guess every single move. And so, sorry, with mindsets. And so when it came down to certain things happening, like, perfect example, I got out of rehab. And I went to the 12-step program off of Newman Road. And what's interesting is that with when it came down to me going back to the job site, for me, I'm naive. I am, 16, 17 at the time. And I'm naive as, green as grass. And I go back on the job site, even though I've worked with my dad for like 4 or 5 years at that point. I went back on the job site to go work for him, and he asked me to do one of the dumbest things. And I mean, seriously, it wasn't safe. Would not have been smart. I think what he was asking me to do would have actually broken like a vehicle, and actually for liability, we would have been really messed up. And what's interesting is when it came down to literally um, when it came down to literally pinpointing like what exactly he wanted me to do, he just told me to shut up and do it. And then we were in front of customers and the employees, and he lunged at me. I mean, seriously, lunged at me like to punch me in the face. I'm over here looking at the screen, but yeah, he literally lunged at me to punch me in the face, and his fist got this far from my face, and I just got tired of it. I just got so sick of it. That was the moment where my nose was going to be broken. Probably my face caved in, but I didn't budge. I just looked at him and said, "What? What are you going to do right now?" And I shared on last week, that was the pivotal moment. Man, I'm telling you, when I mean my heart was beating out of my chest, I am not kidding. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh, it was wild because at the end of the day, I'm over here sitting back wondering, with everything that was going on, what in the world would prompt you to think that that was okay? A, stupid move. B, like, I mean, that's just obvious. But B, we're in front of employees and customers. I dare you. Go for it. And what's interesting is that that was the moment in history that my dad never did that again or tried to intimidate me again. See, my dad would always do those things to literally, I mean, in public, he would do them like just trying to intimidate. Behind the scenes, he never held back. But what I will say is this, is that um, when it came down to him taking those steps, it took me seeing the potential in him of what he could be. And I treated him as he should be. And with me treating him as he should be, it brought out what he could be. And over time, not giving up on him, pulling that potential out of him, and treating him accordingly, expecting and accepting nothing less than his best. Sounds like parent reversal role, right? Like that was the pivotal moment that I felt weird. I'm the kid. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, this feels backwards. I'm being honest. Like, it felt entirely backwards, and it took a little bit for me to wrap my brain around it. I didn't really understand why I needed to be that person, but whatever. God qualifies the called. And I'll say this, is that when it came down to like, who am I? Like, I remember all these different thoughts rushing through my head, and I remember wondering, well, like, why would I even, why would I even consider like actually coming back into this? And I remember one thing. I said that, and God reminded me. He said that if I didn't give up on you, why should I give up on him? And I'm just living proof here tonight, just to tell you that restoration's possible. But how bad do you want it? Because at the end of the day, the person who doesn't give a rip or doesn't even know, at the end of the day, they may not even know to care. But what if you could be that person to change before it's too late? What if you could be the one that changes your family tree forever? Wouldn't that be awesome? Just think about it. What's it worth? Is your pride really that expensive to you? Or is it a kid that you've been kicking around because you like the noise of it or the sound of it? If you can see from a different perspective, it'll change everything. Because if you can see it, you can do it. A lot of times we don't want to go back and restore is because we don't want to be hurt again. But I'm telling you that we only are hurt by what we allow. Boundaries will create structure and set terms for your relationship with someone else. Do everything you can. Just do everything that you can do, that you're willing to do. And also do what's right. When it comes down to literally everything that you have done up to this point, don't beat yourself up. Every decision is a new you. Not just every day, but every decision. Every decision is a new you. And there's a lot that when it comes down to just making a decision to want to forgive. Peacemakers make a lot of money, but also peacemakers bring a lot of people together. I only say that because peacemakers make a lot of money to just get your attention. I mean, it's true. But what's most important is legacy. Think about those who watch your walk. Imagine you putting in the blood, sweat, and tears to restore a relationship that affects an entire family, that goes on to impact an entire state, even a company, the neighborhood. All of these are important. Heck, a family. There are 0 people watching this live stream right now, maybe 2 or 3, and it's fine. Because at the end of the day, when one person's watching and they hear this, that's what matters. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have pure intentions in your heart, and you just want to forgive in hopes that they say I'm sorry, you'll be unhappy. Oh my gosh, you'll be so dissatisfied. And what's interesting, like really truly interesting, it wasn't until I didn't care about my dad not feeling any which way is when I had freedom. I went into it saying, you know what? I'm going to do this for me. I'm not going to do it for him. I'm going to do it specifically for me. And whether or not whether he does what he should do or not, I apologize. But here's the kicker. When you go in with strings attached and with hoping to get something out of it, it ain't gonna work. Because what happens when it comes to the side of pride wants to get something out of it. Humility doesn't care. And what's amazing is that when you just make the decision to forgive, when you decide to say, you know what, I'm not gonna let anything go from any further. I'm gonna draw this line, but I'm gonna enforce that boundary. I'm not gonna let anyone walk over me, move past me, do any of that anymore. I'm gonna just flat out love this person. I want to treat them according to 1 Corinthians 13. If you're not a Christian, just go read the verse, and you'll be able to understand what I'm saying. But That love is kind, love is gentle, love thinks the best of people. Love is not envious, nor is it jealous, and it doesn't covet, and it ain't a hater. And it's not a hater, right? Love without strings attached is the most powerful force to change the heart of mankind. But forgiveness is the oil in the engine. Forgiveness, but also boundaries. So that way there's correction. There's got to be you can't just forget. Oh yeah, okay, I'll have it. No. Let's bring that back down to earth. Hang on, right? And especially in the workplace. Oh buddy, oh buddy, oh buddy. When it comes to the workplace, that's one of the that is one of the most interesting places that when it comes down to just, I mean, everything. When it comes down to like employees, business partners, customers, I mean, all facets of business. I mean, accounting, I mean, whatever, administrative. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, now there are so many different opportunities to be offended or hurt, and what happens a lot of times is there are plenty of opportunities to get into our feelings, right? And to not like react out of integrity, to not to not uh, to not be our best, not to behave and conduct ourselves, to respond out of wisdom, right? A lot of times we'll respond out of reaction, and a lot of that happens with triggers and trauma from past unforgiveness that's happened in our hearts, that's happened to take root in our hearts. And that's part of why journaling is so powerful, right? Like, it's journaling allows you to get your thoughts out of your head like a USB and download them onto paper through pen. And what's amazing is that when it comes down to getting it out of your head and reframing it, identifying the way that you respond and identify why you respond, not just the what, but the how that goes into play in the 5.236 seconds, right, of our fight or flight responses. What happens to kick in that adrenaline? What happens to 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 trigger that response right away? What happened in the past to ingrain that in you and work backwards on that? It's part of the reason for the workshop that's coming up actually in May. If you haven't registered for the May 3rd workshop, you are going to miss out. Oh my goodness. We are going to be digging into a lot of this because there's a lot of there's a lot of different there's a lot of different aspects and avenues when it comes down to unpacking this and really digging into why it's important to let go and why it's important to forgive. Because at the end of the day, there's not a lot of if you haven't registered for it and you actually registered on the LinkedIn event or wherever you've seen the event, if it's on Facebook, I just commented the link on there, and actually this is the official link for you to go get registered and actually get the reminders. So do not forget that. There actually now is available in-person workshops, which is fantastic. And so if you're interested in any of that, just book a time with me on there, and that's the end of this commercial. But when it comes down to really digging your heels in and deciding to forgive, Tony, like there's nothing that can beat that peace of mind. When you taste that peace of mind and just deciding not to feed it. It's not about making it partially is about making like sense of the emotions, but also too is part of it is not to live in those emotions. We're given emotions to feel but they're not given us to make decisions for us. And it's very important to make the distinction, because there's a lot of times where I just really wanted to lay into my dad, but it wouldn't have helped. Man, it didn't help when I did it either. Goodness gracious, I laid into him like Mike Tyson, and I kid you not. There were a lot of times where I just wanted to give up and then did not. I'm just asking myself, like, why am I doing this? He doesn't care. And there's just a voice inside of my heart, in my gut, that said, just keep going. Just keep going. And when I didn't stop, when I didn't give up, that's when um, that's when things changed. That's where it was like, see, forgiveness isn't like it doesn't happen overnight, right? And definitely when you're trying to walk in love and forgiveness with somebody else, yeah, that doesn't happen overnight either. And what's wild is where when it came down to like really, really wanting him to make a change in his heart and his life, man, I kid you not, dude. It was one of the worst experiences that I went through because I had the microwave mentality at the time. You know, I wanted him to be fixed. I wanted him to, you know, all of that jazz. And I just was like, God, why in the world can this not just happen next week? And we just move on with our lives. It doesn't work that way. Everyone's got their own time clock, and everyone's different. Some people are going to hold on, you know, like a pit bull. And if they choose to live there and you've done everything you can to have, you know, broker peace between the two of you, literally, like a diplomat between countries, like that's one of the biggest things is that to love people at a distance. If they don't reciprocate even an inch or an iota of things, and you know, you don't need to, you know, go all out for them, but you just let them know you're here and that you're willing, you know. And I had to deal with my dad. That my dad had the hardest time admitting he was wrong and apologizing. He had so much pride; it was ridiculous. And man, it took a lot. Like I felt like I was climbing over the mountain to say hello. Like I live in Alabama, and like if I'm going to drive to Kentucky or to Georgia just to shake someone's hand, it better be worth it. Like, come on. So, for real, um, when it comes down to when it comes down to um, when it comes down to literally everything that just took place, it was so fast. And like when I was going through it, those 2 years felt like 2 decades. But looking back, it was nothing. It was just painful. And you know, restoration is not impossible. It just takes time and patience. um, yeah, and it takes, you know, it takes faith that it's going to work out. That what you're doing is actually going to have an impact and a weight to it. And that's what's interesting is that when it comes down to um, when it comes down to actually putting in the effort and whether it works out or not, really truly, like that's one of the biggest things. It's tough and it's not easy. And tonight's live stream is going to be a little bit shorter than the normal average, you know, hour-long one, so that way everyone can have an awesome weekend. But I'm gonna leave you with this and this is a Bible verse, but extract the principle from it and hear what it's actually saying. It said the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. Okay, you know what it means by righteousness is God's nature. But I'm going to flip that and then extract another principle from it and say, look, the finished work of finally building the bridge, bridging peace together. Like, I mean, imagine if you could plant a tree in the ground and then, you know, magically just grows overnight. But it would take 7 years of farming. Would you do it? Imagine if when you are brokering peace, like we said earlier, we are making peace, right? Bridge building, finding a compromise, not something that's going to compromise your integrity, dignity, or self-respect. None of that. But how can you meet someone in the middle? How can you do everything in your power that will put the ball in their court? Like, imagine doing that enough. Not being the worst, like deflecting. That's all I'm talking about. I'm not talking about Oh, I didn't do any of this, so you better go. Blah, blah, blah. No, that is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about literally saying, I am so sorry for all the stuff that I did wrong, and never saying anything that they could have done that they did wrong in the beginning. But then what you can do is lead in and say, well, when you remember when you did this, it made me feel, and this is not reality. It's just it made me feel this way. Blah, 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 blah. And then that's where they can be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize it. And that creates the discussion that was never had. And it's a really safe way to see where their heart was at. Maybe it could be that they intended for something completely different, right? And it's just interesting to see where um, it's really cool. It was really cool to see how my dad's behavior and lifestyle started to change slowly over time. He just made bad decisions. That's why, he was, he passed away. And I remember during those 2 years of restoring a relationship, day in and day out. I remember asking myself, like, what am I doing? Excuse me, didn't mean to yawn. But and on the same token, when I forgave myself is when I began to forgive him. And that came into play after he passed away because there's a lot of stuff I wanted to do better and I could have done or should have done better, etc. And I had to realize that I did then the best I could with the information I knew and believed was the right thing to do. We always do what we believe is the right thing to do. Like that is the base premise for human behavior. We are always doing what we believe is the right thing to do at that point in time. Like, period in the story. There's no way around it. It doesn't matter. I don't care what the reason is. At that point in time, you did some screwed up stuff because you thought it was the right thing to do. Come to find out, it was screwed up stuff. Didn't know it then, but hey, now you know. Do better, right? And that's where it's like, how can you put things in place, like accountability partners? How can you put different systems in place, like reminders and schedulers and all these different organization pieces to help keep not only your mind right, your emotions in check, and have some time for yourself, but also spiritually as well. Physically, so that way you can go have a creative outlet and do what you need to do and do what you love to do. But there's so many things that go into when it comes to unpacking when you need to forgive yourself, because at the end of the day, when it comes down to forgiving other people and walking in peace with others, you have to be at peace with yourself. The more at peace you are with yourself, the more you're going to identify that in other people, locate it, and be able to bring it all together. But it all comes from a decision. It all stems from that, and it's a really and that's where the desire came from. I had zero desire to, honestly, just to really truly, I really did not want to. I didn't want to do it in the beginning, but as I did it, what started to happen is the desire started to change. It's amazing how you feel like doing what you didn't feel like doing when you start doing what you didn't feel like doing. I'm gonna say that again. I said it's amazing when you start feeling. I can't even say it right again. Thank God it's recorded, right? But it's amazing when you feel like doing what you didn't feel like doing in the beginning. When you start doing what you didn't feel like doing, just start doing the dang thing, and guess what? You'll feel like doing it after you start doing it. That's why the finished work of peace is sown in peace by those who make it. The fruit of God's nature, love incarnate, is sown in peace by those who decide to make it. Now, what's amazing is that regardless if you're a Christian or not, imagine being able to unzip somebody, plug in a download like a USB, and then just zip them back up. And that's what this does. When you take that initiative step and treat them as that, with love, even though they don't deserve it, what's going to happen is they're going to wonder, why the blue blazes in God's name are you treating me like this? And it throws them off. Now, you have to truly mean it, though. Like, you can't just be like, yeah, I'm a better person than you. Trust me, that'll backfire. You have to do the internal work. You have to realize that they did what they thought was the right thing. And, even too, if there's something you need to clear up, go and clear that air. Interim yawn. Come and go. Bye bye. Okay, thanks. Bye. All right. Woo! Man, it's been a long week if you haven't been able to tell. But when it comes down to literally everything as far as feeling like you want to forgive, I wanted to. I really did, but I didn't want to be hurt again. That's the reality to it. Like, let's be honest. Like, cut the bull crap. Like, put all put all the smoke aside. You don't want to be hurt again. But also, too, you don't deserve to hurt yourself again. And the walls that you're going to put up because you don't forgive and let it go, not forgetting, but letting it go, the triggers are going to come back. And I mean, trust me when I say it's easier to kick a cardboard box than it is to try and mow down a house. Down you. I'll just say this: it's much easier to take down a 3-foot tall tree than a 30-foot tall tree. I'm just saying, because the longer you leave it unattended, the more roots it's going to grow, and the harder it is to dig up. And I mean, no matter what, it's the truth. I wanted to forgive my dad for my own sake because I got tired of being haunted by those thoughts of me not wanting to be like him, but also to replaying all the crap that he did to me, and I was able to let it go. I'm living proof that no one's a lost cause, but also too, I'm living proof that you don't need to give up on anyone. I stood in the gap for my dad. The person that hurt you, whether they're still here or not, they do deserve your forgiveness in the light of you letting it go so you can live free. Don't become the person that you hate or the person that you don't want to become just because you don't want to become them. There's a law called a law of displacement. Science. It's when you put your hand in a bucket of water. What happens? I don't know about y'all, but I did a whole bunch of crazy dumb stuff when I was a kid, like fireworks and trash cans and all that kind of stuff. Maybe that was just me. I don't know. I grew up in the country. We had some yeehaw fun. All right, that's all it is. Roll Tide, no shame. So. And I was a Roll Tide fan before they started winning, before y'all want to say anything in the comments. I'm just saying, I am not a bad bandwagon fan. I was a fan when they sucked. Okay, moving on. So I remember, put your hand in the bucket of water. What happens is that water goes, comes right on out. Okay? And same thing. When it comes to our thoughts, not feeding the animal of why did they do this, blah, 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 blah. Forget about that. They did what they did, whatever. You don't have those answers. You may never have those answers. Not right this second. But what you do need to distinguish, rip that like a piece of paper and slap it over here really quick. I'm going to put it right here. So you have these two different things. This is what happened and what they did and all the answers that you don't have. Here's what you could have done better. Okay? Make that list. When you make that list, you take power from this. Because then you take that in your own hands. And you say, you know what? Look, man, I know all of this happened. I know all this took place, etc. And this is something that goes extremely well in the workplace. Okay? This is where the leaders and the sheep distinguish themselves. Okay? And before anyone gets on a kite, whatever, I'm not alluding to anything. I'm just saying that between yes men and leaders, okay? So when it comes to lions and sheep, when it comes to those who take the initiative, those who let their emotions control and dictate their decisions, getting tongue-tied over here, decisions, we were talking like Sean Connery, decisions, man. But when it comes to emotions controlling our decisions, when we look at our responsibility, okay? What's funny is that when you say responsibility, everyone's like, it's like, get away from me, Satan. Like, it's like no joke. When you look at your responsibility, your ability to have responded better, what happens is you take the power back from that. And then you come back with a clear heart. You know, a lot of people don't want to take responsibility because they have pride. The first step in forgiveness is taking responsibility. If you don't remember anything I've said tonight on this video, the reason why you're still having a cinder block attached to your ankles at the bottom of the ocean because you can't breathe because of all the crap that's happened. I understand that some certain situations and stuff, circumstances may have happened where you couldn't have any control over it. But what you can do, list out all the stuff that was done wrong. Write out the opposite. What is the opposite of what happened? What could have that person done better? And then you be the change. I'm going to dismantle all of this tonight. In the workshop that's coming up on May 3rd, you're going to walk in with cinder blocks around your ankles. You're going to walk out with wings. I mean, my last name isn't Winger. I'm just saying. That wasn't by accident. Jokes aside. Jokes aside, though, you're going to walk out with a breath of fresh air and freedom. Because at the end of the day, these are things that aren't talked about and sometimes aren't talked about in church. And that's fine. We're about to get down to the nitty-gritty and really pull apart a lot of the different things when it comes down to why triggers pop up randomly, even 30 years later. You could be listening to a song. We're digging deep. So if you haven't registered for the workshop, I encourage you to do so if you feel comfortable to do so. Also, if you don't want to go to the workshop, let's say, okay, create a devotional. Let's say just a text every morning. I think it's $5 a month. It's the cheapest thing in the world. It's just to cover costs. There, I don't make anything on it. Like cancel anytime, no big deal. That's a daily 365 devotional, or a 365 daily devotional. Sorry. When it comes down to your livelihood, your mental health, it's important that we have different parameters around it. And I'll put the if you're over on LinkedIn, I'll just comment over here so that way it goes to everything. The devotional, it's just a very simple text. You know, there's nothing crazy to it. But I want these resources to be there for people, because at the end of the day, and also too with the devotional, if you want to sponsor people into it, just fill out their information, just give them a heads up, please, that you're putting their information in there, so that way they'll be like, it's a spam, what the heck? You don't want to freak them out. But definitely share this with anybody you believe that could benefit. And when it comes down to just in general, it's the point to where these workshops are free that are virtual right now, and I want to pour into people. Okay, we have a 30-person cap on this. We've already got 5 that's been booked out since earlier this week. So definitely go in there. If you registered for the event over on LinkedIn, just know that just because you hit attend doesn't mean you're going to get the reminders or the invitation to come. So definitely make sure that you do register, okay? Because at the end of the day, I want you to come. I don't want you to miss out. I definitely don't want anyone that's needing this workshop to miss it because they forgot to register at the actual link. So definitely go to that and register. Please, please, please do. But at the end of the day, I just want you to be encouraged, and I want you to know that at the end of the day, that you are not a lost cause, and nor is anyone around you. Because if they're a lost cause, so are you. Okay? You're not perfect, and we all make mistakes. And if you're going to justify your mistake over theirs, I'm telling you, like, I forgave the person who murdered my dad in cold blood. What's your excuse? I challenge you with that. Don't ever tell me that you can't forgive. I don't accept it. I just don't. I don't even know who killed my dad. My dad was hogtied. They had no trace of death. 33 degrees is what they left the house on. And I saw him the Thursday. That may have happened. Probably happened on the Friday. I don't know. I just know that in my gut, I knew I needed to go see him that Thursday with 2 friends in the car on the way to church. And I was going to be late. I was late. But at the end of the day, who cares? I did my part. I made sure, A, that my dad had a relationship with Jesus Christ. If there's any epitome of someone making it into heaven by the skin of their teeth, it was my dad. Just being real. Bless God. But like when it comes down to making that decision to forgive, you gotta make the decision for yourself. You can't make the decision for anyone else. So that being said, I'm in the live stream tonight. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening with your family and you have an incredible weekend. Keep an eye out. There's going to be a podcast episode that I'm going to be featured on here in this coming weekend. It's going to be airing in the next couple of weeks. So really pumped about that. I'm going to be sharing that out live and definitely keep an eye out for it. So please drop your love, drop your in the comments, and thank you again for tuning in and catching the replay. If you caught the replay, please go check it out. Go check out the workshop. Go check out the devotional. Like for real, like all this stuff is built for your benefit. I'm not gaining anything on it except satisfaction of me walking in my purpose and being able to see that you're getting encouragement and you are walking free from the things that are just have a chokehold on you. So anyways, that being said, enjoy your evening and talk to you later.